What if planets had a heartbeat? Outer space is a vast, unexplored realm that we have discovered very little of. So it's pretty much a given that one day we'll encounter something that will challenge our very understanding of existence. But what if that something isn't a new species or distant galaxy, but a planet itself? What if what initially appears as just another celestial body in space reveals itself to possess a consciousness? What if it's malevolent? The cosmos remains largely unexplored and has inspired countless myths and legends throughout human history, many of which touch on themes of existential dread or the fear of the unknown. It's an uncharted abyss, ready to consume those who venture too far. Because the universe is alive. It breathes, it dreams, it feels, and sometimes it hungers. It might not be immediately obvious, but the moon is not simply a celestial body, but a constant reminder of impending doom. This is the persistent and terrifying danger that defines Majora's Mask, the most unique and haunting entry in the Legend of Zelda series. A mischievous imp named Skull Kid has stolen a malevolent mask, becoming corrupted by its power. Now overcome by a desire for annihilation, he set the moon on a path to collide with the Earth. The central mechanic of Majora's Mask is a 3-day time loop. You only have 72 in-game hours to prevent the moon from crashing and destroying everything. While, obviously, the moon is not a planet, I believe Majora's Mask is responsible for sparking my fear of gigantic astronomical objects exhibiting consciousness. Every time you look up, you can see the ever-present threat, looming larger and more menacing in the sky with each passing hour, its eerie, grinning face staring down at you at all times. There's another Zelda game that takes place on a planet that suggests a level of awareness in a different way. If an all-destroying moon looms overhead, it's reassuring to imagine that other celestial bodies might have kinder intentions, perhaps even those that harbor life. From all overworlds in the Zelda franchise, the Great Sea in Wind Waker offers the most unpredictable journey, full of storms, pirates, and sea monsters. Yet, it never loses its connection to the mystical side of the ocean. Home to the Earth and Wind Temples, which house the spirits of the Earth God and the Wind God, the planet relies on these deities to act as guardians to ensure the harmonious balance of their respective elements. Perhaps this planetary consciousness would manifest changes in weather patterns or natural phenomena, expressing its mood or displeasure. Or it could offer subtle signs of support and encouragement, nurturing the growth and prosperity of those who respect and care for its terrestrial body. A world where natural forces and spiritual entities work in concert to maintain balance. This unique concept of a reactive planet resonates with the hypothesis that the Earth is a self-regulating system. In fact, since ancient times, different mythologies around the world have personified our planet, recognizing it as a living entity. The Gaia hypothesis, named after the ancient Greek goddess of Earth, proposes that Earth and its biological systems behave as a huge single entity, with self-regulatory negative feedback loops that keep the conditions on the planet within boundaries that are favorable to life. For example, isn't it odd how living organisms like plants seem to intuitively know to absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen? This seemingly simple act profoundly affects the composition of the atmosphere, influencing the greenhouse effect, which in turn regulates our planet's temperature. Or how rivers constantly carry dissolved salts into the oceans over vast periods. This should make them increasingly salty and inhospitable to life. Yet, the Gaia solution ensures ocean salinity has remained remarkably stable for billions of years. I know there's a biological and geological answer for this, but to me it feels like Earth has some magic systems in place to make sure we can keep living here. Just looking at stable oxygen levels, greenhouse gases, and the richness of life is pretty compelling evidence that we might be living on more than just a rock that's hurling through space.
The planet is ego. A dog would not invite a flea to live on his back.
In Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Ego invites Quill and some of the Guardians to his idyllic planet, revealing his true nature as a living planet with a humanoid extension. Initially, Ego appears benevolent, sharing his story of cosmic loneliness and his search for purpose. So as a demonstration of his power in his human form, he explains how he can reshape his very planetary surface, molding landscapes and structures at will. This showcases his godlike control over his physical form and his desire to craft an environment that reflects his own vision. In truth, Ego is disappointed with the universe's lesser life forms and reveals his plan to assimilate all other planets and life forms into himself, essentially remaking the universe in his image.
Until everything is me.
Of course, the sentient planet is evil, because the big planet with a face is always evil. Once you've become so all-powerful, any life form on your surface is nothing more than an annoying flea that needs to be squashed. The power to shape a landscape to your will is a captivating concept, especially in the realm of video games. The freedom to forge your own path, to manipulate the environment itself to match your needs. It speaks to that primal human desire to create order from chaos. But the power to summon mountains and oceans from nothing as Ego does, it's an act of godhood. He's not simply inhabiting a celestial body, he is the celestial body. You know, smug smile and everything. With a single thought, the landscape is reshaped and entire cities are conjured. It's like watching a time-lapse of a Minecraft video to see matter being moved on such a grand scale. But even in games like No Man's Sky, where planets seem static, we can still find hints of living, breathing worlds. It's about looking beyond the surface to the intricate web of connections that weave together a planet's ecosystem. Imagine each creature, each plant, as part of a larger organism, that being the planet itself. Every single element plays a role to maintain a delicate balance. A shift in the climate, a new species introduced, and the planet adapts. So perhaps the world's consciousness lies hidden beneath the surface, where our actions as explorers and builders can sometimes trigger a response. We notice a shift in weather, a subtle tremor, or a sign that the planet is aware and reacting. On the other hand, this godlike ability for a planet to alter its landscape can be used for nefarious purposes too. When creating Ego in the Marvel comics, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did not imagine the planet to be a trickster. But like any living being, it needs sustenance. And in Ego's case, that means absorbing the life essence of others. By creating a deceptively inviting paradise on its surface, it can draw unsuspecting victims to their doom. I've always found looking at planets in the night sky kind of fascinating. There's this timeless quality to them, like you can see the history of the universe written on their surfaces. And the way they orbit, it's like a perfectly choreographed cosmic dance, always following the same predetermined path. It makes them weirdly familiar and predictable, even if they're millions of miles away. But in the award-winning Chinese science fiction novel and TV series The Three-Body Problem, this predictability is shattered. The three-body problem in physics is the difficulty of predicting the movement of three objects in space due to their gravity. Unlike with two objects where movements are predictable, like the Earth orbiting the Sun, three objects create a chaotic system where tiny changes can drastically alter their paths, making it nearly impossible to know where they'll be in the future. The unpredictable gravitational forces from the three suns in the three-body problem cause drastic climate changes, making life on these planets incredibly harsh and unstable. We tend to assume aliens would invade us for the same reasons we might invade others, like conquest and resources. But what if their motives are entirely different? Like in the show, maybe they're driven by a desperate need to survive, their own world on the brink of collapse. But ultimately, the reasons really don't matter, because if an alien race is powerful enough to cross the vastness of space, our world is doomed regardless of their intentions. I looked at the night sky differently after that realization. If you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you. While this quote from Friedrich Nietzsche's book Beyond Good and Evil suggests that dwelling on negativity can fundamentally change who you are, I think the literal interpretation is just as frightening. In the game Voyager 19, you find yourself staring at the infinite abyss with only a camera and a computer named Milnius as your companions. The game takes place entirely within the suffocating isolation of a dimly lit capsule. Your task is to capture images of distant planets and listen to their radio signals in the hopes of finding a new home for humanity. But the true objective is far more sinister. Before you, another expedition went on this mission and vanished. It's your job to find out what went wrong. You'll embark on 7 missions, each requiring a picture and audio recording of every planet, as well as years of hibernation as you traverse different star systems. But with every hibernation cycle, the ship suffers decay from the constant exposure to space radiation. During one of the surveys, after documenting several planets, you stumble upon a different ship, adrift and utterly devastated. This is clearly the vessel of the previous expedition, but with no idea what could have inflicted such damage and the members of the mission still missing, you enter hibernation again. But then, on the next mission to a new planet, that sounds exactly like a heartbeat. As you continue the journey, audio recordings start to become increasingly strange and distorted. Until you try to take a picture of a planet in a different star system, and in the corner... It's hard to describe how disturbing this moment really is, because that definitely looks like the same planet that had the heartbeat sound. But going back to take another picture, it simply vanished, as if it had never been. Returning to the navigation system, a new planet has appeared on the map, and when you travel there to take a photo, it looks like Earth, but when you take another picture, the planet seems to slowly open itself up. In this moment, all you can do is continue photographing it, learning more about the living planet while it slowly pulls you in to your inevitable demise. I should stop staring at the abyss. Perhaps the growing number of reported cases of astrophobia isn't surprising. After all, this fear of outer space has roots reaching far back into human history. With no scientific understanding of the cosmos, we were left to marvel at the infinite expanse above. So, without the development of astronomy, how would we have ever known we're circling around only one of the billion suns out there? Which is why it's curious then, that with an infinite amount of galaxies out there, many of them likely having habitable planets, the existence of extraterrestrial civilization seems almost guaranteed. Yet, we still have no evidence of them. This is called the Fermi paradox, questioning the near certainty that we are not alone in the universe and the unnerving silence that greets our every attempt to reach out. One possible answer to this paradox is the dark forest hypothesis. This theory proposes that the apparent emptiness of space is a result of a cosmic survival strategy. Any civilization that broadcasts its existence will risk attracting the attention of hostile extraterrestrial life. There's no way to know the intentions of another civilization, so it's in our best interest to assume they're hostile. Science fiction has long explored these terrifying consequences of humanity signaling its presence to forces it cannot comprehend. While some stories depict aliens invading Earth directly, perhaps the most unsettling scenario is encountering entities that are capable of faking benevolence while harboring the intent to eradicate us. How common life is in the universe is a question that seeps onto every scene of the Dead Space franchise. It starts like most classic horror games in outer space. A massive ship has gone silent and the protagonist, engineer Isaac Clarke, is sent to perform emergency maintenance. Upon arrival, you and your crew discover the ship is overrun by horrific creatures called necromorphs, reanimated corpses transformed by an alien artifact known as the Marker. What stops the game from being like other classic horror setups are these black, obelisk-shaped objects that crash into planets. Because when a marker appears on a planet, it emits a signal that drives the planet's dominant lifeform to create copies of the structure. And to make a very long story short, once a planet's population has been converted into necromorphs and the markers on the planet are drawn together, they combine to form what's called a Brethren moon. And that's after a marker absorbs all organic matter and life on a planet to form those moon-sized sentient creatures. Throughout the game, you're constantly being reminded of the Fermi paradox. The Brethren moons, their goal being to consume and assimilate all life in the universe, have traveled throughout the galaxy to wipe out any alien civilization they encountered. This blood-mad crusade against biological life has gone on for countless centuries, leaving entire star systems completely devoid of even the most basic microbial life. Whether we explore space with rockets or wormholes, an unknowable force could emerge at any moment. No amount of foresight or ingenuity can safeguard us from a cosmic catastrophe. Eventually, we're going to find an alien planet. Eventually, we'll be part of that planet. It's a bleak and terrifying look at a cosmic horror show of planetary consumption. And succumbing to the gradual despair inflicted by an unknowable being lies at the heart of the terror in Junji Ito's Hellstar Remina. On Remina's 16th birthday, a planet suddenly appeared and caught the world's attention. Named after the daughter of its discoverer, the planet and the girl become instant celebrities. However, the initial fascination quickly turns to horror as planet Remina begins to exceed the speed of light. And whenever the planet moves, the stars around it disappear. This is the most dreadful illustration of this concept. The true reason I consider entities like the moon from Majora's Mask and the false planet from Voyager 19 so uniquely terrifying. It doesn't just feel like your time is up. The clock is ticking for the entire world, and the end of life is drawing near. As the planet breaches the solar system's threshold, it consumes Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus in a horrifying display of cosmic hunger, plunging humanity into an abyss of panic and despair. A probe dispatched from the moon base is sent to investigate Remina, noting that it appears perfectly ordinary and incredible it could instill such terror in humankind. Then, a shudder ripples across its surface. Slowly, inexorably, an eye begins to open. In a tragically predictable human response, people back on Earth have scapegoated the professor who discovered the planet and his daughter Remina, branding them as demons. The masses are now clamoring for their deaths, irrationally blaming them while the living planet swallows the moon right above them. The story instills an unbearable sense of cosmic dread, making it impossible to ignore the thought of looking up as the world meets its end. Meanwhile, the spaceship heading towards Remina made an emergency landing to see if the planet might be habitable, but the ground beneath their feet resembles decaying flesh with grotesque tentacles pulsating across the surface. But we have to go along, because surely the story doesn't end on the surface of a cosmic abomination. Surely there must be more for us than life on Earth. In the words of Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, a Russian aerospace engineer, the Earth is the cradle of humanity, but mankind cannot stay in the cradle forever. Because Earth is where we evolved and developed, but it's not our final destination. So the search for exoplanets and potential life forms somewhere out there in space remains ongoing. We're basically looking for a second Earth in the habitable zones around other stars, known as the Goldilocks zone. Named after the fairy tale, we're looking for a planet where the conditions are just right for liquid water to exist on the planet's surface. Not too hot that it boils away, and not too cold that it freezes. But the odds are, habitable planets won't resemble Earth in the slightest. They could be far stranger, far more alien than anything we've ever dreamed up. The first time I heard about the concept of eyeball planets, I couldn't help but picture another horrifying manga by Junji Ito. But they are actually a fascinating theoretical type of exoplanet that get their name from... well, I'll let you guess how they got their name. They are tidally locked to their star, meaning one side permanently faces the star, the day side, while the other remains in perpetual darkness, the night side. While the day side is scorching hot with a molten surface or vast deserts, the night side is so cold that it's completely covered in ice. But the region between those sides, where endless twilight exists, may offer the most habitable conditions for us with moderate temperatures. It's fascinating to think about how alien creatures adapt to these unique environments, thriving in the balance between dark and light. But I'm not entirely sure how I feel about life on a planet that looks like this. While it's fantastic world building, it almost feels like a setup for a boss fight. Perhaps our roots are best planted firmly in Earth's soil. But what if a shadow falls upon the heart of a known world, twisting its essence into a corrupted reflection of its former self? In Outer Wilds, you embark on a mission through a mysterious cosmos to uncover the interconnected stories of a vanished civilization and the secrets they left behind on each unique planet. Also, quick warning, the real horror in this game is spoilers, so make sure to play it first. Because from the moment you begin exploring, it's clear that something's wrong with the planets in the solar system. One of them just feels off. Outer Wilds is a game of exploration and discovery, filled with unique ecosystems and the remnants of a lost civilization. Planets are full of strange, abandoned technology and crumbling ruins. But there's a constant sense of absence every time you descend on a new planet. You explore beautiful landscapes, each with its own story and history, but a deeper, more menacing question remains. What terrible fate befell the civilization that is now nowhere to be found? Unlike the other planets in the solar system, Dark Bramble seems like a cancer, a disease eating away at the natural order, with large tangled knots of thorny vines like it's pulling a planet apart from the inside. Before even leaving your home planet, you were taught to fear this place. Should you choose to go to Dark Bramble, be very careful. No one's explored there before either, for what you'll find are excellent reasons. From the outside, it simply looks like a massive planet overtaken by nature, but upon entering through an opening, the inside is revealed to be much larger than it appears from the outside. When I descended into the planet's foggy center for the first time, I noticed multiple shining stars that pulled me closer. As I neared the lights, the silhouette of a colossal structure emerged from the gloom, but my awe quickly turned to terror. This place is a nest of monstrous anglerfish, and they wasted no time in trying to make me their next meal. Yet somehow, it wasn't some colossal force that brought this planet to ruin, but something incredibly small. A seed, a parasitic organism that feeds on the energy or matter of other celestial bodies. This seemingly insignificant object imploded a gas giant, leaving behind this warped, vine-choked remnant. It shows that true cosmic horror doesn't always lie in the distant stars, but can arise from the awakening of a consciousness beneath our own feet. Trillions upon trillions of stars scattered across an expanse so big it defies comprehension. And yet, no answering call, no beacon from a kindred civilization, just an infinite silence. It's a prospect that should humble us, remind us of the precious rarity of life on this pale blue dot. Yet, instead of appreciating this island of life in the cosmic ocean, we seem determined to waste it. We pollute our skies and oceans, deplete our resources, all while dreaming of escaping to distant stars. So perhaps it's a coping mechanism, a way to avoid confronting the profound loneliness of our existence. Or maybe it's an innate drive, a yearning to explore the unknown, woven into the very fabric of our being. But the reality is, unless we somehow crack the code of folding space-time, an energy field likely beyond our reach, we'll never communicate with any extraterrestrial life. And even if we could reach those distant shores, what awaits us there? The universe is a harsh and unforgiving wilderness. Cosmic radiation, rogue asteroids, unknowable celestial events. We may dream of finding salvation amongst the stars, but the journey itself could be our undoing. So while the concept of living planets is certainly unsettling, it invites us to consider the profound implications of encountering a truly alien intelligence, one that operates on a scale and with a perspective that dwarfs our own. What would it mean to communicate with a world, to understand its desires, its fears, its dreams? Could we coexist with such a being? Or would our existence be seen as insignificant, like that of an insect? These questions may forever remain unanswered, but they are the stars that guide our journey. The stars that light the way towards a deeper understanding of our place within the universe. The stars of a grand cosmic narrative that may forever exceed our grasp, but will continue to fuel our desire to explore. And as always, thank you for watching. I apologize for the outro screen with the moon just staring at you, but I promise you can make him disappear by liking, subscribing, and hitting the bell notification icon for more cosmic content. And I'll see you in the next video.